Okay, so we did House of Blues, which is a 3-part Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends pilot/movie. I consider it a movie because it had a complete movie story structure from the opening, the midpoint, all the way up into the climactic ending, and it was phenomenal. They did such a good job at showing us where the characters started versus where they ended, with the emotional depth of losing a friend to this imaginary adoption center. Like, it was dark in all the right ways. And I can't talk enough about how good it was. It was, of course, by Craig McCracken, who also did the Powerpuff Girls. If you haven't seen my review on that one, it's a really phenomenal film. Definitely one of the best I've ever seen from Cartoon Network. So it's only natural for me to migrate to another special of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Nope, not Destination Imagination. I wanted to go to Goodwill Hunting. Why? Because it's in order. I'm not gonna jump to the pilot, then the finale. I mean, obviously I would, but I'm not gonna do it in this scenario. Goodwill Hunting, I'm very nostalgic for because I remember them having that whole marathon before leading up to it, and then watching it back again in 2025, it was just as heartwarming as I remembered, if not more impressive. We start with this really cute event, imaginary friends and their creator. Apparently, once every 5 years, they all get together again and talk about good old times. We meet Nina, who is a cop, actually giving Frankie a ticket, which is going to be a long-running gag throughout this special, and I'm excited to see it again. So she's Eduardo's creator, and it's so cute the way they connect to each other immediately. Like, it explains so much about Eduardo right off the bat. We get a brief glimpse into everybody else's pairings of imaginary friends, and everything makes a lot more sense than it ever has in this Foster's Home. Blue is kind of snotty because he's saying that Mac is selfish for not waiting 5 years to see him.
You completely deny me the thrill of a reunion that everybody else at Foster's gets to have every 5 years!
And it's like, come on, Blue, Mac can never win in this scenario. And Coco's creators are these two nerds that are like scientific, and apparently they didn't actually imagine her, they discovered her in the forest. A really cute backstory. This reminds me a lot of the Camp Lazlo special when they take us back to the origins of the characters. Like, it's not necessary, but it definitely adds a lot of emotional depth when I'm watching this unfold. Well, everybody is so happy and chummy, meeting their creators, reuniting. Wilt is acting twitchy, dodging every question about his creator. Apparently something's going on here, something sketchy, and I'm excited because that leaves me to wanting more. He has that episode where it's like him unable to say no to anything, and that was definitely such a good episode. It was so character driven, and it definitely gives us a sense of who he is. He overgives to other people to the point of his own discretion, and it was just such a good episode. I'm so glad they took this specific character to expand further, because not only is he funny, he's relatable, and when we add another backstory, it's just so interesting to watch. Immediately, we feel super bad for him after this event because he doesn't relate to anybody because he's been abandoned. That night, Blue wakes up really late to find Wilt on the phone.
But you hoped you never hear from me again, didn't you? It's time we set things straight once and for all.
He's saying a bunch of really vague things that give us the assumption he's doing something really sketchy or wrong, and he actually packs his bag and leaves through the door. Blue is too groggy to understand what Wilt is doing, so he goes back to sleep. The next morning, all our main characters are checking around the room, trying to find clues as to why he would have left. He even took his toothbrush. Now you know it's real. They immediately go to Nina, Eduardo's creator, because she seems to be a cop. She must have investigated things before. They try to follow the bus route that he could have possibly taken, and Nina keeps giving Frankie tickets.
Wilt would really appreciate it. Oh, what's this?
Even Coco's creators are along for the ride as they jump into Foster's bus on the way to find Wilt. I love that there's this random assortment of old characters and new characters with a connection to each other, so it's not like a bunch of strangers. We find Wilt at the train station being all sad until he finds a little imaginary friend that's left on its own. He says everything wants to belong to someone, and we feel really bad for him. I can see why they made the connection to Goodwill Hunting, because it is about this really optimistic character that gets taken advantage of by people. I think there's no better reference to make with this. Wilt hears murmuring at the train station and ends up finding this really cute pink little imaginary friend all abandoned in this broom closet. So he vows to take it home, which, Wilt, aren't you on an adventure right now? Blue looks over at one of Coco Creator's laptops and apparently he's on a dating site, which is already inappropriate, bro.
That's a website on how to pick up women!
Frankie's lost, and everybody drives into the night looking for Wilt. Wilt escorts his cute little imaginary friend back to its home, something that he really needed, and it's really depressing because he gets to see them all have a moment of reconnection, knowing that he has not had that, and his creator is still off somewhere, and we've yet to figure out why. I like that there's this mystery of we don't really know what's going on with Wilt, we just follow his adventures and slowly get a little piece of what's been going on throughout each interaction, especially this next part. He's waiting at a train station in a deserted area when he finds a farmer that is too old and weak to clean up all these haystacks himself. Wilt, being the guy who can't really say no, decides to start helping him. He ends up using his basketball skills to start throwing all the hay into the hay machine, I'm not sure what it really is, as he tells the backstory of his creator.
Yeah, you see, my boy, that is, the boy who created me, he had this older brother, and his brother was awesome at basketball, and I mean awesome. And well,
this is the first time we actually get a glimpse into hearing about the creator, which is really fun as he's helping this old man clean up.
he figured he needed someone to practice with, so that's why he thought of me.
Just when he finishes one of these stack piles, we're like, okay, Wilt is back on his adventure, but the old man reveals that that's only 1/100th of the job, and the entire field needs to be fixed. We know Wilt, and he definitely stays to do that. Meanwhile, the Foster's bus makes a pit stop at the family's house that had the little cute imaginary friend, and they learn that Wilt has actually been there. They finally get their first logical hint as to where he could be, but you know what? They probably think he is off already on the train, so they head where the train is going to head. Meanwhile, Wilt is still at the farmer's place. The farmer's nice enough to give him his tractor to allow him to go on the journey on his own, and Wilt is going through this little montage of night and day as he drives this tractor through the open road. Soon enough, he starts to see that people's lawns aren't trimmed, so he actually goes to every house in the suburbs until he trims them all.
There, that's better. Now, if I can get back to the road, I can still make it on time.
I don't want to get too psychological, but it definitely rings as this character being the kind of guy who feels so insecure about solving his own needs that he can only care for other people's needs. It's so relatable, but also so dark, because it's like he's actively depriving himself of what he really needs, and that's just an objectively unhealthy thing. And although he's really sweet and caring, you know, like, this is his biggest character flaw, leading to most of the consequences in this. We finally get a flashback as he's on this tractor trip to when he had both of his eyes and had his creator. We see a glimpse of Jordan, who is a basketball player that's not quite tall enough. Wilt is friendly and caring, and his height is super beneficial to Michael's basketball skills. He recalls the day that Michael was cornered by a bunch of kids in the neighborhood that bullied him, and the two found a bond in sticking up for each other through basketball. Meanwhile, Wilt's still on the tractor on his way, getting depressed at everything he sees. This poor guy. Frankie is already fed up with everybody on the bus singing and excited to find Wilt, when really this is like a stressful mission.
Watch the road rage.
Mac gets it though, because he's the straight man character. Wilt is about to head back to the road until he sees a truck break down, and of course he cannot deny this. He goes to the truck to help this moving company who had seemed to drop all of their belongings on the road. Luckily, this does well for him as they offer him a ride where they're going. I'm not sure, Wilt, if you know this is the correct way, because you could be kind of naive sometimes, but I guess it's progress. The truck stops to a bunch of cops, and it turns out everything in this van was stolen, so he did the wrong thing. Everybody is worn out and tired from trying to find Wilt and missing every opportunity they can. They finally get out of a hotel that they slept at overnight to continue their journey when they find the three robbers trying to take Foster's bus. Luckily, they have insight onto where Wilt is, and it finally comes out of them when Eduardo picks up the Foster's bus and shakes it. They finally figure out where Wilt is.
You're not going to believe this. I know where Wilt is!
We cut to prison, and a bunch of people are talking about everything they did wrong. And listen to this guy's story.
Did she love that puppy? Then one day, she made me real mad. So I took him back. Oh.
Wilt has a little monologue about his goals and aspirations, and his emotional stories touches all of the prisoners. And we finally hear about the negative side of Wilt. He talks about how he crushed his creator's dreams. But before we can hear about it, we cut back to the imaginary friends trying to get him. They show up to the police station, expecting him to be there, but it turns out that he's gone. Even the judge speaks super highly of him, that he's a sweet and caring person, and of course they all know that.
Yes, that imaginary friend. Well, he was just that, a friend. A true friend. A friend to me and every man, woman, and child on that jury. We'd heard of him and thought he was only a legend. But he's real, all right. Oh, yes, he's real.
It's so cute that all of his positive energy that he's been giving to other people does kind of help him along his journey, even though he ended up in prison. He talks about all the grass that he cleaned up, and it's really cute. Nina finally has a breakthrough. She's like, if we could figure out who the creator is, we can get to them, and we will definitely find Wilt, which is 100% the right thing to do. And this is a really sweet part because we get a little bit more insight as to how imaginary friends are created. You know, this wasn't 100% necessary, but I like that it comes up only in this 2-part special to really shine a light on this moment. It's clear through Nina's backstory that she was a little small girl, so she wanted a big, frightening monster to defend her, and that is how she imagined Eduardo. Therefore, Wilt must have had something similar.
So, we need to figure out what kind of child needed an imaginary friend like Wilt and what kind of a person that child grew up to be.
He's tall, he's friendly, so maybe his creator was similar. Like maybe he was having struggles himself and they have the perfect option. It's this guy in Japan. Jordan Michaels. They head off on a plane to Japan, and we don't see them again. Meanwhile, Wilt seems to be getting closer and closer to his goal, although we are still unclear of what that is. We finally understand who is at the other end of this phone call, after a lot of scenes. Remember the phone call when Wilt was about to leave Foster's and Blue came up in the middle of the night? Yeah, that's the one we're referring to. Wilt is here to showdown with somebody, and the scoreboard is there. This is like an old friend that is some connection to it. Runs into this imaginary friend that's kind of shaped like a basketball but hidden in this dark shadow. And it turns out this is somebody from the past that we've yet to figure out about.
Oh wait, that's right. Your little creator has gone away and left you all alone.
And this is the best part of the entire special. So it turns out that Wilt is here to seek revenge from this game that Wilt lost with his creator. He believes his creator left him because he lost this game with this particular person, so this means a lot to him to come back and actually prove a point. The really cool part is while he's facing off against the giant basketball person, which by the way is even taller than he is, and given the fact that that comes up a lot in the series of how tall he is, this is a big deal. It cuts between what happened way back when his creator was with him to right now. We see the scoreboard back then, we see the scoreboard now, and we get a peek to his friend Jordan. I called him Michael earlier, but it's Jordan, Michael Jordan. Wonder where the connection is. Just assume I'm going with that. It's finally revealed that the reason Wilt lost this game is in this really catastrophic moment when him and Jordan were facing off against this guy. Wilt chose to save his creator over making the basketball point, losing the game, and even breaking his eye. Oh my god, there's even backstory as to how he got this way. That's adorable. Wilt is ashamed and upset because he let his creator down, and he even sees his creator so disappointed. In the end, Wilt loses once again to this imaginary friend, and all seems lost. He's so sad about it, and we feel terrible, especially since it took him so long to open up about what really happened, not only to us, but people in the show. Surprise, Jordan Michael, I'm gonna keep messing this up, helps Wilt up. It's his original creator, and he is a superstar basketball player now, which means so much to Wilt because clearly he has put so much of his basketball and passions into his creator. And we find out that Wilt must have been so ashamed that he lost that game that he never saw him again. Michael clears up that he's missed Wilt just as much as Wilt's missed him. Well, you know what, Michael? Why couldn't you have just showed up at Foster's? You know, that could have helped. Blue comes in with his explanation of how they got to where they needed to go, and we finally hear about everything that went on behind the scenes, which could have been added, but wasn't.
Here we are. And don't worry, he doesn't know about your life of crime.
They went to Japan, apparently, finally met his creator, but Wilt wasn't there. But when Michael found out Wilt was missing, he was willing to take them all back to where he is now. Finally, everybody is reunited at this basketball court. I wish I knew where this basketball court was, because it just seems so vague. Finally, on the plane back, everything is resolved, and Wilt is reunited with his creator, and all of Foster's gets to relax as they're taken back. It's cool that the main characters took a kind of a back seat to this. You know, like, normally we would hear about Blue or Mac, but, like, this is really what it's about. It's Wilt. His creator wants him to come live at the mansion with him, but he's like, wait, you don't want to because obviously you want to be at Foster's with your friends. And Wilt admits that, no, it's not because of that. It's because he wants to be adopted and help somebody else the way he helped Michael one day. And this is a really sweet and genuine moment because it's like the one selfless thing he really does that matters so much.
But I really wanted you to see my mansion. I can come visit your mansion whenever you want. I would love to. Whenever I want. Of course, anything.
It's just goal after goal. Wilt seems sweeter and sweeter, and the more he puts out into the world, the more he gets back. And this journey wasn't really negative at all. It just seems like he was emotionally fulfilling so many people on their way. And then we finally get to the end where everybody is saying goodbye to their original creators, and it's actually really sad. And Nina gives Frankie one last ticket. I love that bit. It's really funny.
But what if no little kid wants me?
Are you kidding? A big, strong, tough guy like you? You'll be adopted in a week.
And Wilt gets extra time with his creator as they play basketball. Turns out Wilt's even better than the superstar player. Finally, the credits go up and we are fulfilled. I definitely think this was a really good special. I wish it was even broken into 3 parts. Like, this could have been a good movie on its own as well. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends just has such impressive storytelling, not only with its characters' depth, but its locations, like everything that happens in it. Every plot point seems to bridge after one another as it gets deeper into understanding the characters, understanding what's going on, and always resolving in a natural way. It's considered a film, but it definitely is a made-for-TV film, which is kind of annoying. It was actually released on Thanksgiving Day on November 2006. Really good time to play it, but I definitely think it was worth a lot more than that. Apparently the background designer won an Individual Achievement Emmy for his role in this episode, because the locations in this are gorgeous, I must say. With all the extra characters, there's somehow, and they're in it just enough to not overshadow the already current characters. It's revealed that Wilt's at least 31 years old, because Foul Larry mentions that it's been 30 years since he whooped his behind. This was also the last episode produced that year. The story managed to be like Goodwill Hunting, but also its own original thing, which is so impressive because that's, you know, we always worry about making something super derivative, but they definitely did a great job here. Craig McCracken strikes again, guys. This is such a good thing. I can't imagine. I definitely think if you haven't seen this in a while, you should watch it again. Like, this is so moving. Wilt and his whole adventure with Foster's running on after him is just such a good plot. This definitely makes me want to watch the next 3-part episode, the Destination Imagination, so keep an eye out for that video because it'll be coming soon. The creator and imaginary friend dynamic could have worked in any scenario, but using it for this specific purpose to have this greater issue with Wilt, there was just so many ways it could have been done wrong. Like, they could have broken it up incorrectly, in, you know, like one event happening in one episode, another happening in the other, but they really found a way to weave everything together and make it a super satisfying conclusion, especially for being halfway in the middle of this series. Like, they didn't have to be that good. I mean, other shows and 2-part specials haven't been as good as this. So I definitely applaud Goodwill Hunting. Please watch it. It is amazing. Cartoon Network has committed to doing a lot of actual TV films. Not just 40-minute... There's a normal segment, which is 10 minutes. There's a normal episode, which is 2 segments of 20 minutes. There's double episodes, which are 40 minutes. But then there's feature films, which are anything over an hour. And Cartoon Network has done a really good job at committing to make a full feature, whether it be Billy and Mandy, the Powerpuff Girls, or even Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, they've done a really good job in the past of putting a feature-length TV movie onto their network. And while this has been super successful in the past, there are definitely frauds out there. And frauds as in two-part episodes that disguise themselves as TV movies, just like the latter, but aren't actually that, whether it be because of the structure or because of something else. And that is exactly what we're gonna see as we dive into Where's Lazlo? Camp Lazlo has always had a place in my heart because it was one of those cartoons about an optimistic main character surrounded by negative characters. Back when this came out, it was exciting because up until this point, Camp Lazlo had never had a two-part episode, let alone a 40-minute special. They usually did 2 segments into a normal episode.
I wish I never said that I didn't care if I saw him again.
So this essentially is a 4-episode segment. The full 45-minute episode has yet to receive an official release. Okay, so the story opens with Lazlo gone. Raj reminisces about the first time they ever went to camp, and it's cool that this episode takes us back to the very first moment these guys came to the camp, because that's not what the pilot ended up doing. We see Raj as a little kid on the bus ridden by Slinkman. He picks up Raj, then he picks up Clam. And the two don't like each other immediately, which is kind of surprising. Clam even tries to sit on the roof. When they get to Camp Kidney, it seems like all the other scouts are already there. They even have a really funny greaser montage where they're snapping their fingers and walking toward them. But it takes us back to reality when we learn Edward is immediately a bully and takes away Raj's book, which is Do You Know the Muffin Man? Which is interesting character choice. They give a hail to Scoutmaster Lumpus in his quote-unquote first appearance.
All hail Scoutmaster Lumpus, all wise and courageous leader, supreme All right, that's enough.
He's kind of strict, but also very klutzy. A giant fruit truck shaped like a banana rides onto Camp Kidney, and it surprisingly has a box with a monkey in it, and that monkey is Lazlo with fruits on his head, and he has a really awesome dance. Of course, this is Tom Kenny, the same voice as SpongeBob, so it's no doubt that I keep connecting the two.
Covered with fruit flies. It's disgusting.
I wish we had flies. Yeah.
Here, you can have mine.
Thanks, Lazlo.
And until I watched it again, I never realized the connection to SpongeBob it had, not just in the animation, but the fact that Tom Kenny plays like 2 or 3 of these main characters. Not only that, Mr. Lawrence is in this too. Mr. Lawrence is Plankton from SpongeBob, and he plays Edward in this show.
Maybe we should fly it back to your grandmother. No, please.
If you don't remember, Edward is kind of like Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, this like really snooty character that serves as like the antagonist. He plays a major role in this special, but in this flashback, this is his first appearance as well. He dances for an uncomfortable amount of time, giving a really weird impression to everybody at camp, and he stops right next to Clam and Raj. Scoutmaster Lumpus is immediately sour toward him, but it seems like he can't do anything about it because he's a camper. He asks him why he can't just show up in a bus, and Lazlo says fruit trucks are just more fun. Slinkman shows Raj, Clam, and Lazlo their new cabin, but neither Raj or Clam seem super excited about it. We see immediately that Lazlo is super optimistic and Clam is willing to jump in. Lazlo says that he has a couple things in his bag that actually might spiffy up the place, and after it looks really nice and fresh, Raj is still skeptical about how weird Lazlo is.
Yeah, I guess he's a little weird.
Hey guys, you should see it out here. It's super cool.
Sri Lanka!
I haven't really seen this side of Raj before. I didn't realize that before Lazlo came along he was so bitter. Meanwhile, they go to their first camp activity in the lake, and Clam, Raj, and Lazlo actually slingshot themselves into it, which looks so much more fun than the regular Bean Scouts are doing. And while they're flying kites, they end up bringing out a plane, which is, I don't know how that's on camp rules. The more Raj, Clam, and Lazlo have fun, it seems like the more Edward gets fed up with them and is building this resentment. And it seems like he even is plotting to get rid of them.
Maybe they need a little helpful kick out the door.
Finally, it seems like Raj and Clam warm up to Lazlo, and he even makes them a nice tiki wood carving.
That's us! Lazlo, me, Clam, and a bunny and a gnome?
You know, it's interpretive. I needed a base.
I don't get it.
Lazlo hears the moaning of a bear and pretty much is like there's somebody in trouble. So he sets off to help it. It's a bear that's having trouble. As Lazlo goes out to find the bear, Edward uses the opportunity to tell Scoutmaster Lumpus that this monkey has broken the rules.
Do you realize what this means, Woodward?
Edward, that Lazlo will be kicked out of camp?
And I'll finally have control back.
Both of them seem excited now to kind of catch him in the act. Lazlo tries to get the bear to stay with them in the Jellybean's cabin, and the bear looks so cute. The bear goes mad, scaring everybody in camp, and even Raj and Clam get fed up with Lazlo's caring nature toward this bear. With the distance growing between everybody, eventually all the campers are hidden out in Lumpus's cabin as Lazlo tries to tend to the bear. But it looks like Lazlo is being attacked by the bear and runs off.
Another bear mauling.
You guys, Lazlo's getting into it with the bear. Uh-oh, the bear's angry about something. Now the bear's chasing him. They're going. But can't see him anymore. They're gone.
Raj is through with Lazlo, and the first part ends on that kind of cliffhanger. Part 2 starts with all the campers coming out from under Lumpus's bed, scared of the bear attack. Slinkman says they have to do a head count to make sure that all the campers are safe, but this is unfortunately the perfect opportunity for them to figure out that Lazlo is missing. Samson runs out crying with Lazlo's hat and hands it to Slinkman, and everybody just assumes that he's dead. Scoutmaster Lumpus doesn't really care until it seems to affect him, and it turns out it's going to be his responsibility.
Scout manual, sir. If a camper happens to be devoured by nature, the Scoutmaster is held responsible. So I guess we should call hoo-ha-ha. Hoo-ha-ha?
Edward stands heroically on top of the Jellybean's cabin to build on the lie that Lazlo is dead, and I don't know why this guy's so positive about it.
But then I leapt into action. It scared off the bear so he didn't take any more lives.
The entire camp starts looking up to Edward as this bear hunter since he quote-unquote defeated the bear, while Raj and Clam are depressed without Lazlo. They're eating buttered waffles all over the cabin and it's already ruined once again. Guys, it's already looked disgusting. They have an encounter with Edward who says that it was a really sad thing to see him be eaten, but he doesn't look sad.
It's so sad about Lazlo, isn't it? I'll never forget the moment that black bear dragged him away.
And mentions it was a black bear, but Clam and Raj know it was a brown bear. They come to the realization that Edward is probably lying.
Edward's a liar! That is right, Clam! He's a liar! He never saw anything!
So they sneak off to find Lazlo and help him out. The next day, when they're doing a head count again, Slinkman checks where everybody is, and it turns out that Raj and Clam are now also missing. Everybody freaks out once again, and Edward takes it as another chance to look better for himself.
I tracked the very same bear to their cabin last night, but it got away.
There again.
Meanwhile, Raj and Clam go out on an adventure to find him, meeting a weasel on one of those push trains. They go up to him and try to get information, but when they mention monkey, he gets triggered because of that old famous rhyme, the monkey chased the weasel, and this part is actually my favorite part of the whole special. Like them going through this giant train track that actually goes upside down like a roller coaster. The animation here looks just really cool.
Good luck running from that monkey!
Clam, that was a little too fun and adventurous.
They end up in this dead-end town with nobody in it, depressed that they can't find Lazlo and that maybe he is dead. They go to a nice restaurant and Raj is so disrespectful. He talks to the waiter staff like they're like nothing.
That's it! I am not going to have my one real meal in a month ruined by some nameless, inattentive servant!
Which is kind of a funny character quirk for him. Turns out that Lazlo is the waiter. He talks to the two campers and is like taking their order. Clam notices, and the three reunite in the bathroom. So it seems like these guys didn't know each other up until this point, and it's nice because it's like they definitely grew their friendship through this. I definitely wish this was like the actual pilot, because that would be cool. Lazlo says he's not going to return, and Raj and Clam are angry because he is the one that made them all excited about camp, and suddenly he doesn't want to go anymore? I agree, it's out of character.
All that organized camping was cramping my style.
You're staying because of cramps? Ouch.
Well, that and I get to wear these cool threads.
There's a distance between the three, and it's actually kind of sad, but we don't have a lot of time to harp on it too long.
Raj and Clam once again hate camp, returning alone. It seems like the camp is transformed into this, like, shrine to Edward, who keeps them all safe. And the bear that Lazlo was once helping is back. And obviously everybody still thinks that it killed Lazlo, so they're terrified. They run to Edward for support, but he doesn't actually have confidence. He's been faking it like this whole time.
What are you gonna do? Every scout for himself!
But they send him out anyway, and he is terrified, not able to communicate with the bear.
The scoutmaster comes to make an announcement, and it's clear that none of the management understand really what's going on here or what to do. If I was a camper here, I would feel in immediate danger all the time. But it's definitely the perfect opening to how he actually is, but like, this isn't the actual pilot, so it doesn't really matter that this is established.
That doesn't sound very much like a bear hunter.
Until Lazlo comes in, translates for the bear, and says that it's not really that big of a deal, he just needs to take the pine cones out of his nose. Once Edward does that, the bear thanks him, and thanks Lazlo. Clam and Raj run up to hug Lazlo, and the camp spirit is restored once again. Everybody's excited to see Lazlo once again, and are impressed with how he communicated with the bear. We leave this flashback when Lazlo enters the room to reveal that this whole thing, that Lazlo wasn't actually missing, and this was all a part of the flashback story.
Do we have to do this every time I go to the latrine?
But we love you!
You guys didn't tell that bear story again, did you?
Definitely one of those, and it was all a dream stories, which isn't super exciting. Now, I know I sound enthusiastic during this whole thing, but upon, like, really inspecting it, it doesn't really hold up as, like, a great special to me. Like, I'm sure you guys are gonna get mad at me in the comments, because Camp Lazlo doesn't have another special, but the fact that this is all they have is kind of disappointing. Like, I would have preferred not necessarily a flashback, but something that's going on in real time that we have real stakes for, because knowing that it's going to be a story from the very get-go is already assuming that things are going to turn out fine anyway. There's no real stakes immediately off the bat. And it's definitely working in an episodic structure. Like, it feels like there's 4 segments that continue the same storyline as opposed to one long Where's Lazlo episode. You know, like the first part is them all getting to camp. The second part is Lazlo fighting a bear and getting hurt. Then we get Raj and Clam's adventure to find Lazlo. And then finally Lazlo saving the day. When really it should have been like, we could have kept some of those flashback moments while it was going on in real time and really focused on Raj and Clam's adventure, because that's the most interesting part of this whole special to me.
Hello again. I'm sorry, but I just realized that I hadn't given you nice folks any ice in your water.
Thanks, Lazlo.
No problem, Clam.
The Edward storyline is really cool, but it could have built up to something more, like the entire camp being at risk more than just a bear. Like, maybe we could have actually thought that they were in danger as opposed to like, oh, that bear was nice in the first episode, why would he go rampant now? And that moment when Raj and Clam are with the weasel, that is when I was like, okay, I am on board for this. But I shouldn't feel that way 30 minutes into the 40-minute special. Like, it's already over at that point. Imagine if the SpongeBob movie didn't have them adventuring to get the crown until like the last quarter of it. Like, that wouldn't be a movie. And it definitely tries to sell itself as a movie. If they were like, it's a 2-part episode, but they don't, you know, like they definitely are committed to this. And I feel like, I don't know, they could have did a better job. Overall, it was really nice to revisit the show after how long it's been and how hard these episodes have been to find. Like, they're not available on any streaming platform. I may have found the DVD from season 1, but that's from another country. Like, they don't even have any DVD releases here in America.
The monkey segment, he's returned! Returned? This is wonderful, sir. Now you can call...
So it's not really a good look, and especially being compared to SpongeBob, which has all of that and above, and while it isn't as quality as it used to be, it's definitely the most comparable cartoon to this. You know, an optimistic main character with his 2 best friends, and this is just not an exciting payoff. It's a shame that this was like the only one, because they could have done so much better. We learned a lot about the campers' first entrances, which I thought was really necessary, but I definitely don't think it was good to put it in this special. Like, it to me feels like they're trying to cram more time into a 40-minute special because they don't know what to do with it. And that also goes with saying the pacing of this is just so off for me. But I am looking at it as if it were a movie. But overall, Where's Lazlo was a pretty fun watch. I would definitely give it a 6 out of 10, but like for fun watched, it was like 7 out of 10. But how do you guys feel? Do you remember this special, and does any of these plot points ring a bell for you? I would really like to know, and if you disagree, don't comment! No, I'm just kidding. Leave it down below.
I've been very nostalgic lately, coming across some of the best TV specials and movies from Cartoon Network. They've been doing such a good job. At least I thought they were doing such a good job until I revisited this show, My Gym Partner's a Monkey. It ran for about 4 seasons, and you'll be surprised with how successful it ended up being. However, there is one outlier that I think needs to be addressed. My Gym Partner's a Monkey's finale was a 2-part episode called The Big Field Trip, and it's listed as a TV movie, but I'll tell you what, if it's that, then I don't think it's good. I'm gonna tell you right off the bat. But if we look at it as like 4 separate episodes, or just a really extended episode, it's a lot better. But let's dive into it as a feature film, because that's what they said it was. So we start at the normal animal school with just Adam and Jake, our 2 main characters, chilling at the lockers. There's an announcement from the frog principal that the field trip is going to be happening soon and all band members are going to be a part of it. I don't think Adam is currently in the band because Jake tells him about the field trip and he doesn't seem interested. Adam admits that he plays the piccolo in a band, and Jake says it's obvious because of his facial features, which is already kind of offensive. And then we get this long-running gag where they're like, oh, you play the bassoon, right? Adam is like, okay, I don't think I'm coming. But then the teacher is like, oh, well, we're gonna need a bassoon player. The Frog and Mrs. Warthog talk about how she's gonna be driving the bus. As everybody gets on the bus, the armadillo comes on handing him his permission slip, claiming that now that he is giving it to him, they have a right to ask them for technically anything they want.
You now have permission to do with me what you will. Anything you want, I'll do it. Cause you got that there some permission slip.
And I already am nervous at the plot they're trying to set up here. It's a really funny bit though. The other teachers are getting ready to go on the trip, so it's gonna be a full ensemble feature. I forgot how funny the gym coach was, the little fish in the bowl.
Get that off my bowl, Horace!
The principal brags about how his sense of direction is pretty much perfect. There's this ongoing talk about how apparently last year it really didn't go well. I think it's because they got lost, but they're super vague about it, which is kind of funny. As all the main characters find their spots on the bus, it seems like it's finally time for the field trip. Poor Adam gets sick. I think it's really funny that he's this really sensitive kid, especially going to a school full of animals. Like, I would be disgusted at most of the things these people share. That's another thing I forgot too. When I'm seeing him look at this bag of puke, I'm remembering this show is a little grotesque. I mean, I know I talked about Flapjack in my worst episodes list, but this show seems to be a lot of gross humor because it's literally animals and humans. Like, obviously the humor is going to be based on something those both find in common. Immediately, the navigation becomes a problem, surprise, surprise, as the bus literally heads into a cave that says do not enter and then do not exit, which is actually kind of funny. A brief montage where they're driving through multiple places, including space, occurs, and we're in danger. Miss Warthog suggests that they get out and ask for directions, but the armadillo, who claimed he will do anything that everybody wants, is saying he won't do it. So I guess now the principal and band teacher are going to be the ones to stop and go and talk to the people in the gas store. Instead, they come out with all this Dutch supplies. I guess they didn't ask for anything while this entire bus of students was just waiting for them. I don't know why Miss Warthog just continues to drive, knowing it's just a random direction. Adam pulls out his piccolo, to which Jake says, you cannot play that on the bus. Obviously, Adam doesn't care because it's like, why? But already, why would you play an instrument on a bus anyway? Like, it seems like an inconvenience to begin with. But as he practices, all the animals fall asleep. And most concerningly, the bus driver. As they're heading off a cliff, everyone on the bus is asleep and we cut to a blackout. I'm already super stressed, and this is a good way to end a first part in a 4-part. I'm excited to see where this goes. Adam is in a bad mood, which I don't know how you have enough time for anger when you're heading toward a cliff. He's kind of talking about how he is on a bus with a bunch of sleeping zoo animals, which Adam, I think if you've even gotten this far, it's kind of on you. Before he could actually stop the situation, Miss Warthog starts to cuddle him. Everybody wakes up just in time to watch themselves fall off a cliff. There is no break, they just go completely off this cliff. Everybody is screaming and freaking out, as I would too. I'm scared of heights, so I kind of feel this. Turns out that it does not plummet, it actually just keeps going through the sky.
Yes, emergency jet propulsion. Standard on these Bratislavan beauties. Of course, they always have been gas hogs. No offense, Warthog.
None taken, Chief.
Fly until it runs out of gas and it just starts plummeting. Okay, that was an unnecessary delay. I think we could have just went on with that. They end up in this giant swamp-like forest. Everybody on the bus in the middle of this pond. It's broken down, and I feel like this is about to be a stranded situation. Everybody lays idly on the floor, with Adam more annoyed than anything. They compared to this pickle experience last year, where they went on a field trip.
It's a pickle.
And that seems to be a really average trip. I don't know why they would be scared of it, but it's just scary, I guess. The teachers kind of team up and try to figure out what to do with Miss Warthog not being able to leave the bus. Things take a really scary turn when the teachers and students see a bunch of rabbits. Why? It beats me. They're so cute.
Those aren't our students. They're wild animals.
Wild animals? Oh, crud.
Turns out it's because they are wild animals, and apparently wild animals and zoo animals have completely different ethics. Which I think is a really interesting concept. You know, like we've seen these animals going to school with Adam for quite some time, and it's already been kind of like an with a quote unquote fish out of water scene, but it becomes even further when even Jake approaches the animals. I don't know why they're so fearful, and they just keep running away, and there's a couple jokes that go on a little too long as this is happening.
If we work together, we can... If we work together, we can get the bus!
But I guess that's what the 40-minute specials are for, right? Jokes to be slightly longer than a minute now. Adam suggests that they all work together to get the bus out of the swamp and back onto the road. But because everybody's freaking out, nobody's really being helpful, so Adam starts playing his piccolo once again, making them all fall asleep. As they're all asleep, a little squirrel comes down, takes Adam's piccolo, and runs right back up the tree. This gives enough time for all the animals, both zoo and wild, to wake up and freak out. I love the idea that these animals would be more scared than even humans would be of regular wildlife. The main cast runs into a cave to hide, being cornered by this butterfly, and they are terrified. They find Luffy, who had not only befriended a butterfly, but she used it for her own benefit, being able to fly, which she could already do.
How'd you do it?
Well, we were locked in mortal combat. When suddenly I remembered the horrible Mr. Pickle.
But she's basically like, hey, if we could face that pickle last year, we could face anything. Meanwhile, Adam is trying to get his bassoon, or piccolo, back from this little squirrel, but it proves to be harder and harder as Adam is pretty much beaten up climbing up this tree. Jake doesn't help Adam as Adam confronts this little squirrel, and the squirrel outsmarts him, allowing Adam to fall down from a tree. Jake finally listens to his instincts, jumps off the tree, and saves Adam. I want to think that this is not a big deal because I swear in the TV show he's helped him from falling multiple times, but it does seem like this is a little bit higher stakes, maybe because it's a cinematic shot of him falling. I don't know. I just get a little bit more worried than before. Jake also manages to get the piccolo and Adam back to safe ground. They hug and make up, saying that everything is okay because it's just one chipmunk.
See, there's no reason to be afraid of a little chipmunk.
Yeah, but an army of chipmunks is a different story.
Until we see an army of chipmunks corner Jake and Adam. And then we end on a to be continued. Okay,
the stakes are getting risen. It seems like the original premise is being expanded upon. I think it's a really good special so far. Let's jump into the next part. So Adam and Jake are confronted with a bunch of squirrels in army hats because they're all obsessed with Adam's piccolo. I don't know why the piccolo is the center point for all the conflict in this special, but I'm just going with it. A giant owl starts to dial in on Jake and swoop in to get him until the sun interrupts, which I didn't realize this was a character in the show. Why? To blind the owl, making all these
Don't worry, little one. If Adam won't save you, I will.
wild animals assume that Jake is God. Jake steps on poison ivy and is almost infected before these little squirrels spray salve on him to comfort him. The rest of the main cast walk around this island trying to avoid conflict, but they slip on a banana, fall off a cliff. A lot happens in 30 seconds. They even lose all of their clothes and suddenly they are just as wild as the wilderness. No longer are they zoo animals, they are fighting for survival. There's a joke about how they are so far from actual civilization, but there's a highway actually behind these woods. And I kind of don't like this joke because it makes the stakes suddenly a lot lower. It's like we're really aware that they're not in danger and this is just a overreaction, which is already an episode-like device. I really wish they didn't use it in this movie, but whatever. I guess we're just gonna go as if that didn't happen. The teachers are all surrounded by these cute little bunnies as they try to come up with a plan. They talk about running onto the bus to get by these little cute bunnies. So the teachers are all plotting to get to the bus, but it's being blocked by all these cute little bunnies. It doesn't work, so they say that one of them has to volunteer to go out. All the teachers agree that the only student in the group will be the one to do it. Real responsible, guys. The armadillo is advocating to go out and talk to the little bunnies, and it's funny because it's exactly referencing the fact that he signed this permission slip. So these animals continue not to be a threat as the armadillo runs away, and all of them keep trying to approach the bus, but these cute animals just barely walk up to them, and it just feels like it's just the main characters scared of nothing. Eventually, the teachers actually fall into a giant trap and start freaking out in the ground. The trap is the one set up by the main characters who are in like survival mode, and everybody but the armadillo falls for it.
They got Henry.
No! Not dear little Henry! Ah, who am I kidding? Better him than us.
Look, man, you all need to just stay calm, like me.
Meanwhile, Jake is living life as all these squirrels are tending to his every whim. Adam is annoyed that he's taking advantage of it, but of course he is.
Taking advantage of chipmunks is not communing with nature. Think about what you're doing.
Think. Blah, blah, blah. Boring. Adam, out here in the jungle, we have a motto. Too much thinking, and your corpse will be a stinking.
Adam is like, you're basically being a fraud right now. Eventually something worse is gonna come out and you're not gonna be able to protect these guys. But then he holds up his piccolo, which is Adam's, and all the squirrels defend Jake. Adam falls off the tree into a pile of mud when bears approach him. Actual threats. Adam remembers a lesson he learned in school about when being confronted by a large predator, and this is the one and only time it seems like a lesson from this specific school would help Adam in any scenario. I mean, thank God this actually has relevancy in this plot. Definitely gets its points for making the special better. The bears take Adam, and we don't know what happens to him. Meanwhile, Jake is actually approached by a king of the squirrels. Turns out to be an all-out war between the squirrels and the chipmunks. Sorry if I varied between chipmunk and squirrel for all of them over and over again, and Jake does not know how to solve it because he doesn't have a human brain. He attempts to by going ape, but becomes the enemy for all of the animals.
Use your brain to think. Cause more pain. Come on, you stinky bunch of rodents! Is that all you got? Let's see some real action! Hey, that worked even better than I thought.
The main characters run to the bus as a new means of like civilization where they can live safely. While all the teachers are underground, they get in a fight about getting paid overtime. Like some of them are and some of them aren't, and it is the worst timing. Meanwhile, Adam tries to fit in with the bears, but does a really poor job. They dress up as Yogi Bear,
and Boo Boo and tell Adam to like kind of be cute and steal the picnic basket from the humans. I don't remember seeing a lot of other humans in this show. And as they finally steal and get away with it, the humans accuse Adam of tricking them. And suddenly Adam is more of a animal than he is a human, and that's really interesting because obviously he's growing up under this school facility, so I'm not surprised. Jake finally is out of conflict with the squirrels until an ugly squirrel comes along and the Squirrel King says that it's his daughter, feeling awkward and leaves.
Don't worry, King! I'll protect you! Ooh, this is your daughter, huh?
The bears bring Adam to their house where they use him as kind of like a maid. And suddenly Adam just works for this family of bears until he decides to get a piece of food himself. Then the bears go crazy and Adam runs away. He's saved by Jake once again, who is already himself running away from the squirrels. But now that Adam gets the piccolo back, he is able to kind of stand up against the wildlife. Everyone's concerns come true as the zoo animals and the wild animals team up all on each other, and Adam makes everybody fall asleep as he gets the Charles Darwin High students onto the bus and the wildlife separate. Finally, Miss Warthog continues the field trip, and when we think everything is normal, the chipmunks enter through the roof of the bus. Okay guys, I'm starting to get tired of this. Can we please just have a resolution? They finally arrive at their destination and Adam is angry because the big field trip is a trip to the big field.
This is our big field trip destination? The big field?
That's why it's called the big field trip.
Are you guys kidding me? It was all for this one joke. So everybody rests and chills at this giant empty field with their instruments. The band teacher gathers everybody and they start to actually play their instruments, which aren't actual instruments. They're interrupted when Adam makes a fart noise along with the group, and the band teacher is like, nope, you don't do it right. And that's where it ends. Okay, so this was a really, structurally, I think this was a pretty sound special. The Big Field Trip does a good job at keeping this feature-length story structure, but honestly, the way it's carried out is probably like really poor to me. I feel like they chose to focus on the least interesting beats of what could have happened. Like things like Jake being in charge of all the squirrels and the animals having a war with each other are really funny concepts, but they're just kind of like the most base level things happening in order for them to tell more jokes. It seems like the jokes are more important than the actual stakes being risen. So anytime there is a chance for things to get even a little bit serious, it just kind of avoids it altogether. Like if you took all the moments where, you know, like the other main characters, like the gorilla and the animals are just trying to find civilization, they're trying to find a place to live, instead of it like being actual things that risk their well-being or even them turning on each other, it just seems to end in them going for the bus or their rock tent falling apart or they're making a pun with the armadillo and accidentally trapping the teachers. Like nothing is risky, nothing ends up being a result of the plot happening. It's just a bunch of like minuscule events that are carried under the umbrella of this field trip happening, and nothing really is going on, if that makes sense. I'm trying to explain to myself why it could have such a impressive setup and carry out with also still kind of not being super fun to watch, and I feel like there's just nothing emotionally pulling this story along. Like there's a good plot, but there's no story at all. And the fact that everything is kind of told with a butt of the joke up until the very last minute, I mean, I appreciate its consistency, but it just never takes me anywhere interesting. Like I could have turned this off at any point. It would not have felt like I was missing anything. The Big Field Trip definitely made me second guess if any show can adapt into a feature-length film, because this is not what I wanted it to be. I'm not sure if it's my nostalgia hoping that it was going to be better, but I didn't have super high expectations. Overall, the Big Field Trip, not a great one. 6 out of 10 for sure. And those 6 points are only coming from the fact that they timed this special out perfectly over the 4 episodes. I will give them that. If you're a fan of this show, then I think this must have played out perfectly. And as an objective critic of kids television, this didn't really do well for me. But what did you guys think? Do you remember this special? And if you do you remember how little happened in it? I'm really curious your guys' thoughts below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and for more 2000s content, don't forget to check out Johnny 2000. Okay guys, have a great day.
Did you know that Ben 10 had multiple universes and different timelines? Because that was the first I heard of it when I watched Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix and Race Against Time back to back. I've always wanted to talk about Ben 10, but I never found the appropriate time to do it. So I kind of wanted to start backwards. I wanted to start with some of the most important moments in this series. And I learned a lot and had a fun time doing it. So let's get into it. What's up, everybody? This is Johnny 2000, covering all 2000s content, media, video games, and more. Today, we're going to be talking about Ben 10 Race Against Time and Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix. So they made two very distinctly different Ben 10 movies. And these are two completely different concepts, let alone not talking about the fact that one is live action and one is animated. I feel like they're in almost two different genres. Unlike what the series has become now, they're so different. So let's jump into both of these movies individually, and I'll tell you guys some of the interesting facts I found online, and then let's jump into why they're so different. Let's start with Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix. So Gwen grumbles about how they were supposed to spend summer at the mall, but they're in the middle of another supervillain plot. Her and Grandpa Max are literally chained to the ceiling of a grimy villain lair warehouse, dangling over some weird-looking machinery. We see Dr. Animo, who's cackling, and he's talking about his latest evil invention, which is like a DNA bomb, which will de-evolutionize the world and turn humans back into prehistoric creatures. Which, you don't think COVID did that, bro? Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. In all seriousness. So Ben bursts in, except this time his hero transformations come with a fashion upgrade. He's making a flashy entrance, and of course, Animo is unimpressed and releases his latest abomination, a giant mutant Hymenopteron. It's so hard to pronounce, guys. Just bear with me. So Ben puts up a solid fight, but the creature keeps coming back, and Animo smugly points out that there's no way to shut down the machine easily.
Even you can't generate enough heat to melt that casing!
If I can't shut it down, I'll just have to turn it up.
So he does things his way. He unleashes a powerful fire blast, energy beam, and tries to sabotage the machine. Unfortunately, a siren blares and an energy wave surges, hitting Ben mid-transformation. The Omnitrix shorts out. I don't know what's going on. It's kind of like my stomach after Denny's. And just as Animo makes a quick getaway, Ben collapses into his human form. He finally defeats him and goes back to being himself. Gwen yells at him for doing this, not knowing what might happen, but Ben just says, "Can't be worse than if I don't do anything," which is going to be his reoccurring catchphrase in this.
What's up with the watch? I don't know.
The Omnitrix starts glowing orange and recharges itself. Weird, because it usually just shuts off. There's another action chase, and I keep forgetting how much kids like these action sequences, because I prefer to move on with the plot, but I guess we're just gonna watch Ben chase Animo, knowing that there's no way he could defeat him completely in this moment. And as Ben's Omnitrix goes crazy, Gwen is the one who ends up saving him.
You're really getting good at some of those spells in that book.
Practice makes perfect.
Gwen demands that they finally go to the mall like they planned. So Gwen's thrilled to shop, and Max wants to enjoy his smoothie in peace, and Ben is bored out of his mind like an easy Gen X kid.
Gwen needs a break from the whole battling bad guys and aliens thing, that's all. She just wants to feel normal again.
He literally does not know how to be chill. Come on. Gwen rolls her eyes at Ben once again, and the Omnitrix actually glitches, this time sending out a shockwave that actually knocks them into a store worker. The manager is angry and yells, and they're actually banned from the mall forever. Gwen is super furious. It's interesting because Gwen and Ben's relationship is probably the most intimate in this show, and even though they don't necessarily respect each other, it seems like they're the first person to care about one another's problems, which is very humbling. And I like that the movie kind of focuses in on this relationship despite wherever it's about to go with its plot. So at 3:30, a blinding light comes outside the rust bucket. Ben is half asleep and assumes it's just some mall security revenge plot, but it's a giant spaceship instead. The pilot steps out of the spaceship and Ben prepares to go heroes, but a diamond shard pops up in front of him. It's Tetrix.
Good to see you again, Ben.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Ben and Gwen are thrilled to see their old ally, but the excitement doesn't last long because he says he's picking up on an SDM signal from the Omnitrix. So SDM means self-destruct mode. Not just the watch will stop working self-destruct, it's going to explode, taking Ben and probably the whole planet with it. Ben now is panicked and asks how this could have happened, and Tetrix explains that something Ben did triggered it, and they have less than 4 days until it reaches zero. Whew. This is exciting. So Ben ends up going with Tetrix, but Uncle Max stays behind because it's too risky for any plumber to be recognized, and Ben is hyped for the space adventure in this sleek, futuristic ship, and Ben is like geeking out, having a great time, meeting the pilot, Gluto, which is this blob who communicates through gurgles and enthusiastic wobbles.
I assume you're familiar with space travel protocol?
Oh, sure.
Later, Tantrix scans for Azimuth's DNA.
Azimuth is on Incarcicon, the prison planet.
The creator of the Omnitrix is in some space slammer?
And Ben is just trying to be useful. Ben tries to sniff out the intruder when he realizes that it is actually Gwen. Yeah, Gwen stowed away on the ship, and now Ben accidentally activates the escape route. Unfortunately, the countdown has only accelerated because of Ben's transformation. Okay, so he's doing even more irresponsible things. Obviously, Gwen is not happy, and this is another issue.
I just figured since Ben can't find his toothbrush when it's stuck in his mouth, he could use some help finding the creator. Hey, I'm just kidding. Ben never brushes his teeth.
The gang disguises themselves to sneak into the Incarceron, this high-tech prison planet crawling with dangerous criminals. While they're searching for Azimuth, Ben spots somebody who looks like Vilgax. He thinks it's his arch nemesis and impulsively transforms into Upchuck to attack, only to find out it's actually a female of Vilgax species, not him.
You're a girl!
Yeah, I know.
Meanwhile, 6-6 ambushes Tetrax, Gwen gets cornered by prisoners, and Ben's Omnitrix shorts out again, leaving him helpless. Gwen fights off prisoners with a metal pipe, and Tetrix rescues all of them. This new character reveals her identity. She's Myax, Azimuth's former assistant. Ben begs her to fix the watch, but she drops another bombshell. She's not the creator.
What have you been using this for? To open cans? Break rocks?
Sounds about right.
Azimuth is actually missing. And worse, she admits that the Omnitrix isn't just going to explode, it's going to literally rip the universe apart. Oh my gosh, then alien force, that won't happen.
Because I know where Azimuth is.
That's a pretty good reason.
Where?
Xenon.
Xenon.
So Xenon is cloaked in darkness by one of Azimuth's devices, and that's actually a really cool concept. To think this entire place is so dangerous that it actually has to be shrouded by darkness. Ben navigates through the asteroid field, and the Omnitrix actually has a homing signal, which make it easier for them to get there. But unfortunately, everything is blocked when Vilgax's ship tears into theirs, sending bioids to attack. So Ben has to fight off all these mecha droids in a pod, while Tetrix and Myax try to detach the ship. Gwen and Gluto fend off Vilgax inside the ship. Gwen pilots the hover simulator in a desperate defense, while Gluto heroically sacrifices himself to protect her.
You are going to regret sending me to the null void for what little remains of your miserable life.
Vilgax and Ben 10 finally have a one-on-one encounter here in space, and it is terrifying. After all the chasing, seeing them neck to neck running around the spaceship is just so isolating and really freaks me out.
I do not make deals.
That's okay. Neither do I.
Ben ejects Vilgax into space and crash lands on Xenon. However, the planet's not as abandoned as it seems. It's actually crawling with wild florana, which is wild vine species. It's kind of cool to see a little glimpse into that alien life form, but you know, it's not a safe situation for it. And they capture Gwen. Ben once again transforms into Four Arms in a desperate rescue attempt, but he fails to save her. He's distraught, lashes out in frustration, and feels horrible about himself because, you know, it's fair, he was warned multiple times. Tetrix tells him to keep moving, and they're getting closer to Azimuth's true location.
If you hadn't helped the creator make this stupid thing, then I never would have found it and Gwen would still be alive.
Ben.
I am a selfish and self-centered being, but it takes one to know one.
So Ben's devastated after Gwen's capture, and he's super silent, while everybody heads to Azimuth's possible hideout.
You okay?
Just wondering how I'm gonna tell Grandpa about.
I'm sorry. I know what you're going through. I was young.
He said when he was Ben's age, he said he was a selfish mercenary who worked for the highest bidder and even Vilgax. The worst mistake of his life was delivering the final piece Vilgax needed to destroy his homeworld. Oh, that's so depressing. Tetrix's guilt fuels his mission to stop
villains like Vilgax, and we have a lot more insight onto him. Ben finally admits that he was reckless back at Animo's lab, and he was the one who might have triggered the Omnitrix self-destruct. But this time he's going about it with a more positive angle. He actually vows to make things right, not just for himself, but Gwen. And it's nice to see how much he cares for Gwen, because we never really see that in other episodes of the show. I mean, there's a lot of plots that resolve with their relationship, but it doesn't always go back to normal. And of course, there's a lot at stake right now with not only the Omnitrix about to explode. This is like a really, really tough pill to swallow for Ben. Ben and Gwen kind of remind me a lot of Jazz and Danny from Danny Phantom. I'm not sure if you guys get that relationship, but like the kind of bickering siblings, but also kind of have a shared responsibility of using this power that the main character has. I don't know, it seems like a similar show.
What are you doing with my Omnitrix?
My Omnitrix? You're the creator?
So security lasers scan the Omnitrix, activating a hologram of Azimuth. This grumpy, mechanical-looking guy is not happy, and he wants to know why Ben is messing with his Omnitrix before immediately shutting the doors in their faces. Ben is tired of everyone getting his way and transforms into Cannonball and barrels through the doors like a wrecking ball, which kind of seems like the character backtracking considering what we just learned. Ben confronts Azimuth, expecting this like grand wise inventor, but instead he's a tiny alien. In fact, he even looks like one of Ben's aliens.
Yeah, I'm a Galvan, so what? Does that give you the right to destroy my property and invade my privacy?
Enough talk! Stop the countdown!
He's convinced the universe isn't worth saving, and people like Ben and Vilgax are just going to keep using the Omnitrix as a weapon instead of what it was meant for, which is understanding all species.
You and Vilgax are no different.
That's not true. Sure, I've messed around with the watch, but I've helped a lot of people with it too.
Oh, interesting. So the Omnitrix is almost like an empathy provider where you could literally step into the person's shoes. But that's interesting. I guess, you know, like from somebody's perspective, Ben is a hero, but from another's, it's like he's just using power. Like even though he's doing these small saves, it might not be for the better of the universe. It might just be as destructive as somebody like Vilgax. Ben claims that he uses it for good, and before he could respond, the entire lair starts to shake. It turns out that Vilgax is back with an army of bioids and mechadroids as they descend from the sky and surround them. Azimuth is like super not in the mood and is like, why are you doing anything about this? But suddenly a giant spell blast explodes, and Gwen is there and he's alive. Ben is on the verge of tears. He tackles her, and this feels like a really rewarding moment because of how much we were convinced she was gone. And she explains that Gluto regenerated and saved her from Florina. Oh, thank gosh. That would have been a really dark reality to accept, Ben. Ben's blaster gets destroyed, and he and Myax get overwhelmed, and there's no other choice. So Ben rips off his inhibitor, stopping the Omnitrix energy blast, and it explodes in a massive shockwave, wiping out Vilgax's forces, hopefully once and for all. And Azimuth finally deactivates the self-destruct button before it hits 0, and finally the universe is saved, but Vilgax is still standing. Oh gosh. As the villains close in, Vilgax is riding on one like this mech warrior, ready to take the Omnitrix. Gwen reminds Ben once again that he doesn't need the Omnitrix to be a hero. So Azimuth actually helps him, reattaches the dial, and instead of fixing it, he unlocks a brand new transformation. The Omnitrix starts glowing a blinding light, and Ben transforms into an enormous skyscraper-sized alien. With a single punch, this guy way big sends Vilgax flying as Ben laughs him off, and it's all done. Vilgax is thrown into space. We don't know where he's going or what's going on. The battle is over and the team regroups. We find out everything is good. Azimuth rebuilds the ship and offers to give back the Omnitrix to Ben. Ben is super grateful, and surprised, Gluto can speak English. Turns out he was insulting Ben the entire time. Awkward.
Oh, yeah.
Who knew?
And Ben gets a new hoverboard as a parting gift. Meanwhile, there's a radio report of a zombie attack at the mall,
And we feel a nice resolution as they get back to their episodic adventures. Finally, it ends on a really positive note. And it's nice because it's not like everything was concluded, but it allows the audience to have an imagination as to where Ben and Gwen would go from now on. I mean, an imagination. We don't really want to talk about pretending like we don't know Alien Force and Omniverse and literally all the sequel series. Like, there's no mystery to where these guys end up. But it was definitely a fantastic conclusion to this first series. Like, the first series offered a lot of surprises and fun with the Omnitrix and all the aliens it could transform into, and getting this final dive into its creator is the perfect way to end a series. As someone who only watched this series, like, I definitely feel like I would have been happy if it ended here. Apparently, Secret of the Omnitrix takes place in between the episode Goodbye and Good Riddance and Race Against Time, even though it kind of aired before both of them. And Race Against Time is an alternate timeline in the Ultimate Alien chronology. Now that we've covered Secret of the Omnitrix, why don't we switch gears and go into Race Against Time. So this is the live action version. Tara Strong, who is replaced by a real kid this time. Okay, at least it's getting taken seriously. So according to the pop-up trivia I actually learned from this, Ben has been back in Bellwood for a few weeks since his summer vacation ended. Since her family moved to a different part of Bellwood during the summer, Gwen is actually going to Ben's school now. Gwen has temporarily given up her real magic in an effort to try and get back to normal. Ben's aliens got famous over the summer thanks to news reports. Okay, so it's 2:59 a.m. in Bellwood, and a mysterious figure appears out of thin air in the town's main street, and we genuinely do not know who this guy is. He could be a street performer in purple for all I know. He immediately starts destroying things. Okay, so maybe he's not. Maybe he is an unfriendly street performer. We see Ben in the form of Heat Blast, and I'm already excited to see the first alien in live action in this special.
This is the part where you tell me your name, what your evil intentions are, yada yada.
And Heat Blast does not look too bad. I think some of the action moments are a little bit hard to watch and a little slower than we would expect, like from a cartoon to a live action, but Heat Blast looks cool, so I'm going to forgive it. After a very short battle, Heat Blast obliterates the villain and reverts back into Ben. The pop-punk rendition of the theme song, though, is a little weird. It feels a little off to me. I don't know what it is. The next morning, Ben's in school, and we finally get to see Ben 10's normal life outside of the TV series. I mean, there was an episode or two that showed it to us, but this is really fun to see it live action. Now it's all real. It's all for the first time. So he has trouble adjusting to his normal life again.
Heat Blast, the superhero, in Bellwood? No way.
Actually, I heard he was Heat Blast too. He's pretty cool, isn't he?
He gets bullied by this guy named Cash and JT, and these two kids at the high school have a really funny banter between each other. And I didn't expect Ben to be this stereotypically bullied, but I think they did this a little bit in the pilot, so I'm not that surprised. We meet Ben's parents for real, and I'm telling you, they are like weirder in person. They are like hippie, angelic type people, and I just don't know how to describe it. It's just different than the show, I feel like.
Well, we were kind of hoping that you'd be finding friends your own age to play with.
Kids my own age are boring. Grandpa's fun.
They tell Ben that he needs to readjust to his life in Bellevue. So he actually attempts to do this by thinking of joining the talent show, but he doesn't know what to do, so he asks the girls to give him a talent. Ben, that is not what's supposed to happen. He assumes his talent's gonna be something with the Omnitrix until Gwen interrupts, thank gosh, because he almost ruined that. Saves Ben by saying they'll do the talent show together. Ben has a really hard time fitting in, even when he's chilling at the diner, and he goes into gray matter, another alien, second alien for this special. And then we have an excruciatingly graphic sequence of Ben turning into gray matter, and it is disgusting. It is graphic, it is uncomfortable. I don't want to see Ben turn into these aliens as realistically as they're trying to put out. And he causes complete chaos at this diner. And this is one of the repercussions that happen from Ben actually trying to use his Omnitrix to shortcut life, which is a really fun moment. Later, he and Gwen go over the same yearbook photos she took, and in the background of one of them, Gwen enhances a blurred spot to reveal the same villain that Ben defeated earlier. Max identifies this as Eon, an alien that the plumbers captured almost 2 centuries ago. How old are you, Uncle Max?
Took us many years to find out.
When he arrived, he was half dead and brought a device called the Hands of Armageddon, which opened a time rift to the alien's home dimension, and his plan is to unleash his race upon Earth when it's activated. The three Tennysons travel to a secret hidden containment facility where Eon is supposed to be kept in this suspended animation, but it's empty and his guardian is aged to near death. Before he dies, the plumber warns Ben that Eon is after him specifically. Oh my gosh, well, this is exciting actually.
Can't let him find the hardware store or the rest of the plumbers.
Grandpa, you said the plumbers disbanded.
We kept a handful active to watch over our things.
So they travel back to Bellwood, where Max takes Ben and Gwen to the location where the Hands of the Armageddon is. It's guarded by a few remaining plumbers ranging from Mrs. Dalton, Mr. Hawkins the postman, Fire Chief Whittington, and Principal Edward White. And it's really cool to know that the people in Ben's life that we've actually previously met in this film are part of this secret protection facility. Like, it makes me feel good that Bellevue is so pro-hero.
Why didn't you just destroy it?
We've tried, honey. Over the years, we plumbers have thrown everything we got at it. But the Hands have a way of deflecting us.
Eon follows them and breaks into the facility but can't activate the device. So Ben attempts to use his Omnitrix, but it malfunctions, glowing purple, refusing to activate. Like, what could this possibly be? It doesn't even look like the same way it does in the show. It seems like something different is going on, but I love to see it live. Eon manages to corner Ben, explaining that his race learned to control time itself, but accidentally trapped themselves by misusing their power. He claims that his fate is intertwined with Ben's. Oh, this is scary. Eon attempts to kidnap Ben, but Ben is able to escape. Max decides it would be best for Ben to leave Bellwood so Eon wouldn't find him.
Look at it that way.
If Eon wants the Omnitrix, he's gonna find me. It doesn't matter where I go.
Ben.
You and the plumbers said that it's up to me now to protect the town. So let me. Let Eon come and find me here in Bellwood.
And they both come to a deal where Ben will be monitored daily by a plumber in disguise. The plumbers all around town are guarding Ben around the clock. Ben goes to school and somebody's watching. He's in gym, somebody's watching. This is where we get to some really quirky moments from Ben 10. And it's funny because a lot of the more fun and satirical experiences that Ben have is so much better in real life. Like seeing him interact with the adults, seeing him interact with Gwen, like it just seems like this world is so fun when it's silly.
Girls are assistants.
Times have changed, cuz. Don't worry, you'll look great in a leotard.
Things get more actiony or the aliens come out. This extra realism is a lot more harder to believe, but I do think it does a better job than any of the other Cartoon Network live action experiences in the past. And he's just paranoid that Eon could be anywhere. Suddenly Eon arrives again and shoves the principal out of his way. Ben has to transform into Diamond Head and fight him off.
Come on, let's settle this thing once and for all.
When an alarm sounds, the entire school gathers in the courtyard, through which room, Benjamin?
Oh, man. Huh?
Later in that day, Ben decides to lure Eon into a trap by purposely leaving himself open. But this backfires, and he is immediately captured, along with Gwen and Max, and the rust bucket is destroyed. Wow. Okay, so everything is getting a little bit more intense. At the plumber facility storing the Hands of Armageddon, Eon explains some of the background of the Omnitrix. Ben can only remain in his alien forms for 10 minutes at a time, failsafe to prevent them from overwhelming his personality. Eon knows how to deactivate the failsafe, and in doing so can resurrect himself through the Omnitrix. So he does that, and he transforms Ben into a younger version of himself. Meanwhile, Principal White has gotten out of the nurse's office and finds the imprisoned plumbers. When trying to find a key to the room, they point out that the button near the door freed them. So Gwen and Max manage to free themselves and work to stop him. Max in the meantime tries to disable the time rift at the cost of his own life. Oh my gosh. We just met this live action Max and he's just as good as the cartoon Max.
Grandpa! Ben! Ben's hissing, you stupid idiot! Grandpa's in trouble!
Gwen appeals to Ben inside Eon. Ben is able to successfully overcome Eon, pressing the Omnitrix symbol after his cloak reverts him back into Ben, with the help of the other plumbers. They manage to save Max and disable the time rift, sending Eon's race back to their own dimension. Just when it seems like they won, time stops for everybody but Ben. The older Eon appears, angry at Ben's victory, and Ben transforms into Wild Mutt. Oh my god, there's still more battles. This is where it's getting over budget. Eventually, he knocks him into the hands of Armageddon, destroying both the hands and Eon. Okay, so I get it. We want a more conclusive ending. I'm on board now.
Hope nobody noticed that.
I don't feel so good.
Using the Omnitrix, Ben is able to make it look like he's just doing this as his talent. Wild Mutt reverts back into Ben, and he accepts being just himself for a while. He does not need to turn into aliens. However, Max points out that aliens are persistent, and as they walk off into the night, an alien ship flies toward Earth. The end. This definitely did a really good job translating the original series into what it had become live. I like that it's so different from Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix, because it's really hard to have really intense, important events happening back to back. I like that the first movie focused on Ben and Gwen's relationship, the second movie focused on Ben and this new villain. Like, they were able to take this episodic approach to the film while also rooting it in Ben's origins and not proving to be this one-off. This movie actually appeared in Poland before the first episode of Alien Force on the same day, which is kind of weird to me. This movie was actually originally canon to the prime timeline of the classic continuity. As a part of Ben 10,000 Returns, it's been retconned into an alternative timeline with many changes to the story, such as Eon now being an alternate timeline version of Ben instead of an alien, and the Cronians and Cronia no longer exist. The reverse happened in Ben 10 Destroy All Aliens, that other movie. The reason behind the name of the Rust Bucket 2 was because the original was destroyed in this film, and the current canon explanation is unknown. Some of Eon's previous attempts to control Ben prior to the movie were thwarted by the paradox, and it's kind of unknown if this holds true after Eon was retconned as being an alternate version of Ben. Darren Norris is Diamond Head. Darren Norris is the guy who plays the janitor on Ned's Declassified and Cosmo from Fairly Odd Parents, which is really random. Although Ben has stayed in his alien form for over 10 minutes before, it's never been with the failsafe purposely turned off. The weird energy fluctuations of the Hands of Armageddon make it impossible for Gwen to use her real magic. The hands needed the full power of the young Cronian to become activated. The hand's defenses dropped once again once it was powered on, and it made it easy to destroy, which is why it was easy to happen. The stage manager was actually played by the movie's writer, Mitch Watson. Carl is implied to know one of the plumbers, and the ships at the end of the movie are implied to belong to Vilgax, which is kind of cool. Overall, both of these movies share really special quirks. While Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix focuses on the relationship between Ben and Gwen and the action adventure they have throughout space, I feel like Ben 10 Race Against Time did a better job at fleshing out the world and turning it into a more cinematic experience that you could excuse to actually go to the theaters and watch. While Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix can lean more into the TV movie category. Both had amazing reveals and really great storylines. Like, they both were definitely objectively feature films. The cool thing about them is that each of the scripts work in its own way. Secret of the Omnitrix could not work in a live action way, and I don't think Race Against Time would be as interesting in an animated way. Making these unique experiences that really thrive off the format they were made in.